Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at some Trench Crusade warbands courtesy of HeyGears, who have sponsored this video. Now you've heard me talk about HeyGears in the past because I use the Reflex RS as my main resin printer, in fact my only resin printer now, and I absolutely love the thing. HeyGears have been working on a new resin, which is the PAF10 resin. And one of the things that it is specifically geared towards is miniature making. So it's more flexible, it's more durable, it is very good at picking out fine detail, and that all sounds like a really good excuse for me to finally get round to printing a couple of Trench Crusade warbands instead of relying on proxies, because I've been a little bit lazy when it comes to getting up to speed on the miniature side of things for that. So what I've done is I've printed two warbands. I've printed the Court of the Seven Headed Serpent models, and I've also printed some from Bestiarum Games. See, Trench Crusade does have its own miniatures, and they're fantastic, but they are also quite clear that you can use the miniatures that you would like to use. And Bestiarum Games have given me quite a lot of stuff over the years, and I had just the right combination of things to make myself a cheeky little Heretic Legion warband as well. So I've printed both. Now, before we take a look at the warbands themselves, let's talk a little bit about this resin. It's been developed to be flexible, durable, it can be bent and it can be dropped. In fact, I've dropped a couple of the models because I'm incredibly clumsy. It's been designed for low water absorption, which should help with painting and overall longevity. They've specifically aimed for this resin to produce clear details, a good amount of sharpness, and no layer patterns on flatter surfaces. Really everything you want when you're printing miniatures. Price-wise, it comes in at $55. At the moment, there's a new launch sale with 10% off, and they're currently running a promotion for the Reflex RS as well. So if you were to pick up the Reflex RS and 3 bottles of the PAF10 resin, it will currently run you $999 as opposed to $1,164, and if you use my link in the description down below, you will get a further $50 off. Just as a side note, by the way, I already liked the Reflex RS a lot. It's the only resin printer I use anymore, and it's getting better as time goes on. They update it regularly with new firmware. Things like the UI is a lot better, the layout is better, you've got more options now when it comes to customization and calibration. Things like the resin heating is improved, you can print from lower temperatures now as well, so it's down to like 5 degrees. It's perfectly happy to heat the resin and print, whereas previously it wasn't so sure about it. Just the overall amount of information that you get has improved as well. It's pretty damn good, to be honest. Oh, and something I really like that they've kind of added that completes the set, via the app or via the slicer or via the printer itself, you can look at how long the FEP has got, like how many uses it's had, all that sort of thing. Now it also does the same thing for the screen in the printer as well. So pretty much anything that is consumable on the Reflex RS, you can track how far along it is, and you can tell how much it's been used by, and therefore you can plan for when you need to replace it. It's only a small thing, but it wasn't there before, and it is now, which kind of goes to show that they're constantly looking at ways to make sure that it's just easy to keep on top of everything. Anyway, enough of my blithering, let's take a look at some tasty miniatures. We're starting with the Court of the Seven Headed Serpent, so we've got 3 Hell Knights, 3 Yoke Fiends, a Pit Locust, and a Sorcerer. I absolutely love this warband, so I was really excited to see how these came out. I'm not even sure where to start because they all look fantastic, but I'll be honest, there is a distinct favourite amongst all of these excellent models, and that is Hell Knight with gun. I mean, how can you not love a knight with a gun? What a choice. Love it. It's fantastic. And I have to say, the PAF10 or PAF10, depending on how you want to pronounce it, it's done a good job. It's done a good job. There's a lot of detail on these, a lot of quite fine detail, and some nice textures, some really nice textures. So if we take a look at the helmet there, the helmet has got this kind of worn, battered, corroded sort of look to it, and it's come out super crisp, super clean. All those little pits and marks, they've come out really nicely. It's also just the armor as a whole. It's not cleanly sculpted. No, that's not the right phrase. It's cleanly sculpted in that they've done a very good job of sculpting it, but it has these kind of imperfections, these dents and scratches that you can see, like in the shoulder there. There's a little bit on the chest as well. Just these marks of wear and tear and damage. and they've all come out really, really nice. Things like the chain, the texture on the chain is really, really nice, like the chainmail down the front. That looks great. I mean, overall, it's just a very cool mini anyway, but I'm really, really happy with how this print has come out, because it feels like all the textures are there. There's a nice depth to them, there's a nice crispness to them. Oh, look at that. The chains on the back, and then the fur with that skull, the little symbol in the skull. I mean, they're just excellent models all round. But you kind of need a decent printer to be able to get excellently sculpted models to look excellent in person. I think this looks really, really nice. I think this looks great. Now, of course, the Hell Knights also have other loadout options. There is one thing that I'm not really sure how to combat on this. See, this mace, it came out a bit bendy, a bit wonky, and I did try to correct it. Something I noticed is that uncured, this new resin, it's a lot softer than some of the others that I've used from HeyGears. It seems to be a bit more like pliable, and I did try and straighten the weapon out, but I don't think I held it in place long enough, and I think I maybe should have rested the model in a certain way, like maybe braced it or something whilst it was curing to get it straight, because there's definitely a bend going on there. But the thing is, it's only really on that weapon. If we look at the horns on this knight, they have come out really, really straight. They look great. You know, they've printed very nicely, and they don't have the same issue. So I wonder if maybe I rested the model in a silly way. Again, the rest of it, it's come out really, really nicely. I do like the shield. The shield is fantastic. Again, all that corrosion, those little tiny scratches and marks. I mean, I've done highly detailed prints with other resins that HeyGears, you know, provides for the Reflex RS, and they've all come out nicely. But I will say that, personally, I think this might be a step above. There's just something about the level of detail in that armour that, just to my eye, it just feels a little bit clearer, a little bit cleaner overall. I think it's because it's so many little tiny scratches and teeny tiny dents and even the tiniest imperfections. I mean, it looks great. It looks really nice. There is a little bit of support scarring on one of the legs there, I've just noticed. But it's not terrible, and it's not that noticeable, and it also isn't spread up to the top of the body, so that's nice. Also, again, like a total lack of layer lines. I've not really had an issue with that full stop with the Reflex RS. I don't think I've ever had a model that's had noticeable layer lines, but it's nice to see that trend continue, where it's just, you wouldn't be able to tell they were 3D printed once they're painted, which is, to be fair, where a lot of the technology is at now, but it's still a little fear that I kind of maintain for some reason. I think because of, you know, very early experiences, just having those moments of, oh man, there's a bit of striping there. Especially maybe if you've bought stuff from third parties, like on Etsy. There's a model I bought off Etsy years ago, which, looking at it now, the print quality is actually kind of poor. And I have a little bit of paranoia because of that, but to be fair, I've never had that issue with this printer. Just noticed little tiny supports still left on the head. I must have missed those. They are very tiny. I'll have to remember to take those off before I paint it. Again, armor's come out super great. Love the axe. The axe is fantastic. Very good helmet as well. I mean, I like the corroded helmet on a knight with gun, which is still, I just love the concept. It's never going to get old. But I will say, the horns on this, really nice. A little bit of added detail at the end there. Just those little kind of rings around the horns near the tip. Oh, just a nice bit of extra detail. Overall, this armour looks great. The chainmail looks fantastic. And again, we've got no issues with any sort of drooping or bending on this one. That's the other thing as well, like the chainmail, or the chain on the back, it is deliberately a little bit kind of bent and like it's moving somewhat. But none of that feels particularly, you know, out of the ordinary. So it is just that mace really on the other knight, which, I don't know, interesting. Interesting and something to work on, I think. I think probably for me, more than anything to do with the resin, if I'm honest. We also have the pit locust. There's quite a lot of different textures going on here. And that mouth, or two mouths? Two mouths, right? Technically, I think. What an absolute mess this guy's face is. The mouth and the head are pretty complicated. And really quite detailed. Like, the kind of overlapping nature of it going on there. And then you've got a proper inside of the mouth. That looks really nice. That is, I'd say that's perfect. Look at that. Oh, painting this is going to be an absolute nightmare. I've also only just noticed, got a little crown going on. That's a nice and fun detail. I've never noticed that before. I don't know how I haven't noticed it. It's fairly prominent, but there you go. Somehow it passed me by. But, oh, look at the kind of segmented nature of the armour. It's very, very fun. I like that a lot. And again, nicely detailed. Lots of little dents and scratches and stuff. Come out super, super well. Also the bells. There are things about this model I've just never really picked up on, and I don't know why. I'm going to have to go back and reread the lore for this dude, because he's interesting. He's interesting and he's weird. I like the wings as well. The wings look great. That's, again, overall, really nice and clean. I am really impressed with that head, though. That has come out super, super crispy. The teeth actually look properly sharp, which is really nice. And you can see the little mouth within the mouth. Flipping xenomorph looking freak. Look at him. Also the little tusks there. They look great. And again, we've got a distinct lack of any sort of bending or twisting on the more straight areas. So yeah. Yeah, pit locust looking good. Looking real good. Oh, so fancy. So nicely sculpted. I mean, this is the thing, right? The Factory Fortress Inc., the company that now does all the Trench Crusade stuff. Well, I say now does. It was just Trench Crusade before, but then I think they developed Factory Fortress Inc. to be... Did I just even say that right? Factory Fortress Inc. to do like the production side of things and all that stuff. They got some really talented sculptors. They got some really talented sculptors to come in and do these miniatures. And it shows. It shows that everyone was on board. On board with the aesthetic, on board with trying to get everything as close to the artwork as possible. So like the yoke fiends that we've got now, again, I really like the different textures. You've got those discs, this kind of overlapping armoured discs going on, a bit of chain over the chest, the chainmail, the fur. Looks really nice. Weapons are a bit more simple and a bit more, I don't know, I was going to say rustic. Is that the right phrase? It looks great though, and there's an actual, like, it feels like there's quite a nice edge to that polearm type thing. Is it a polearm or is it closer to a billhook? Yeah, I really like these. The hooves look good too. The hooves look fantastic. Proper cloven hooves. Yeah. Again, really nicely sculpted, really nicely designed. Oh, little tiny supports there that I missed. Some of them are so ridiculously minuscule. It's still like... It still kind of impresses me, even having done a lot of 3D printing at this point, you know, over the years. It still impresses me when I'll find like the tiniest kind of hair width support lurking in an area that I hadn't spotted, where I'm just like, this came out of something in my garage. This doesn't feel like it should be possible, and yet here we are. This is kind of cool. Another yoke fiend, two heads. All the horrible horns and spikage. The two heads look absolutely awful. In a good way. Like, they look really, really cool. Really gruesome, really grim, but excellent. And again, really like the textures. The textures are really good. The pattern design on the shield looks really nice as well. Oh, that's a good looking model, that. Massive belt, the cloth looks good. The fur again has come out really nicely. I do like the amount of texture on these models. Lots of different materials. Lots of wear and tear. A nice mix and a balance though. Yeah, that one looks great. Now it's not just knight with gun, we've also got yoke fiend with gun. A comedically large gun at that. Awful face. The design of the face is so grim. It's really grim. Now initially when this printed, I got a bit worried because I hadn't realised that the horns, you know, one of them is deliberately broken. I really thought that one of them had snapped off and I was going to have to mess about cleaning the tank out. So when I looked at the picture again, I was like, ah, okay, that's fine. That's okay. I can cope with that. It's a cool design though. The face is really grim. Nightmarish stuff. A little bit simpler in terms of how much armour there is, but that gun looks fantastic. Again, similar design around the back. Mix of armour, fur and flesh is really nice. And again, the hooves. The cloven hooves. They look great. There's a lot of detail like up the skirt. I don't know how else to phrase it. Whatever, like the loincloth, I don't know how to put that in a way that isn't weird, but there's actually quite a lot going on up there in a strictly miniatures based way. It does look great though. Also, it kind of looks like there's a bit of muscle going on, despite there being a bit of like flab, which is a little bit upsetting. But I don't know whether that's just because the armor plate over the gut is pushing some of it up. I mean, anything about this is upsetting. Just look at the face. The face tells you everything you need to know. Rongan, not to be messed with. Look at it. Oh, it's come out great though. Come out really nicely. And finally, we've got the Sorcerer with his base, which I haven't glued yet because I don't want to have to try and paint all that cloth like whilst it's attached, because I feel like that would be a nightmare. Normally I don't paint in like sub-assemblies, but when it comes to painting stuff like this, just don't put the base on first. It's daft. There is a lot of detail on this. All the intestines, one of which is also a snake, which is kind of cool. Multiple arms, a bunch of runes and sigils like scarified into the flesh. It's a very, very cool design, but again, I feel like it's come out super clean. The horns look fantastic. That kind of symbol in the middle of the head is really good. The face is so detailed. And it's come out absolutely perfect. The flames on the sword as well. Oh, yeah. It's an absolutely horrible model, don't get me wrong. It's really creepy and really weird. I mean, like, the chest is open. Guts are splitting out all over the place. There's a skull implanted in the open chest. We've got a proper, like, horse skull face. Was it more goat? Is it goat or is it a horse? Either way. Either way, it's upsetting. And the amount of, like, stuff carved into the arms. And then, even when you get to the back, it does not get any better. Well, it kind of gets better in that you want to see more cool stuff, and it does have more cool stuff, but it's also still kind of upsetting. That's come out so nicely. I'm actually really, really happy with this. I have to admit, this is a model I was a little bit concerned about overall. I wondered how well it would translate, like the artwork for it. Because I think I saw the artwork before I saw the model. And it felt like one of those ones that, like, very nice and complex art, but how do you turn that into a miniature that does it justice? But they've absolutely managed it. They've completely managed it. Really detailed, really nicely sculpted, and the print is, I mean, I'm well happy with that. I'm very, very happy with that. Looks great. Super clean. Super clean. Now, onto the second warband. Now, what I've done is effectively tried to match what you get from the Heretic Legion warband from Factory Fortress / Trench Crusade, and I have put together the same warband but using models I already had access to from Bestiarum Games. So we've got the Heretic Priest, but I have used a different model, which is the Penitent Hero, the Demonologist. So we've got similar vibes, right? Got a big staff, we've got an occult symbol, we've got some robes, we've got a bit of armour. It felt very appropriate for what that unit is, and I think it fits. Like, I think it works well. I think this is a nice alternative, because that's the thing, right? That Trench Crusade has incredible looking sculpts, incredible minis, but it's also still kind of miniature agnostic. Like, they want you to play the game. they would like you to buy their miniatures, but they're not being militant about it. If you already have stuff like that you've got access to, or models that fit the aesthetic, fit the world, that can take the place of something that you would otherwise, you know, have to buy, there's no real issue or problem with doing that. And I had a bunch of stuff from Bestiarum Games, but they've been very generous to me and the channel. You know, they'll send me stuff on the regular, and so when I was looking through what I had, I was like, you know what? I could make a pretty cool Heretic Legion warband from this stuff. So let's give it a go. See how it kind of holds up next to the official stuff. And to be fair, that's a decent start. That works quite nicely. That works quite well. Little tiny supports I've missed again? Good grief. Or is that just entrails hanging off? That's hard to tell, actually. It could be both. It could be either. I think this works well. The cloth has come out super nice. The staff looks great. All the little bits of parchment with the writing on. That looks really cool. I do like the fact that there's a single horn growing out of the head. It kind of doesn't fully mimic what the Heretic Priest has got, but it's also not that far off. You know, there's 2 horns on that model. Having one on here, nice little cheeky nod. Nice little nod there. Plus, carrying a decapitated head, you can't mistake this person for anything other than a bit of a wrong un, which I think sums up the Heretic Legion pretty well. I'm really happy with how this has come out. Things like the cloth on the staff look really nice. That icon on the top looks good. It looks like there's a little bit of kind of layer lineage going on there, but that might be down to the orientation of the model. Overall, really like this though. Really like it. The armour works well too. Feels super appropriate for that warband. Feels like it works really well. Now, the Heretic Legion warband also comes with an Anointed with Heavy Flamer, so for this I used the Flame Sower, which I believe is part of the Allstein release. So there's a few different Allstein bundles, but this is from one of them. A little bit chunkier around the midriff than the official model, but we've got a nice big flamethrower, which is exactly what we want. And again, I feel like it fits quite nicely. The armour's a little bit battered. You've got this kind of overall situation going on under the armour. Bit of a creepy hood with crazy eye holes, which look really nice. Like, those gaps are really tiny, really small, but they've come out super crispy, super clean. Even things like the little wires, I feel like the little wires look really good. And the little dents and kind of imperfections in the armour, again, have come out looking really nice. Things like those little rivets and stuff on the pipes on the backpack, that's nice. That's come out well. Super happy with how this has turned out. I think he's technically a little shorter than the Anointed, but I'm not 100% sure. He might actually be okay scale-wise. I mean, the important thing really is the base size, isn't it, more than anything else? Because you can always build up the bases, get a bit of rubble on there, just make them that little bit taller through using kind of basing material and scenic stuff, which is, I've done that countless times for models, where I'm like, this would work great as this guy. He's like 2 heads shorter. What do you do? Well, he can stand on a slightly bigger rock, which, you know, a tactical rock is fine if it's got a purpose. That's what I've just decided. Come at me. Yeah, I like this guy a lot. He looks really fun. Now, of course, you've got to have Heretic Troopers. Obviously, they are like the backbone of that warband, and I love these. So these are the Bane Gunners. They look fantastic. Really cool little uniform. The cloth looks great. The armour that's all segmented, almost bone-like, looks fantastic. I especially love the helmets. The helmets look really good on these units. That kind of gas mask helmet look, but there's a skull element to it. They look all corroded and twisted. It's very, very cool. Very cool. The guns feel very appropriate for Trench Crusade as well, which was one of the reasons I was quite happy I had these. Because they feel like they fit, right? They feel appropriate for the setting. The overall aesthetic works super, super well. I mean, I'm not going to say that you could just assume these were part of the like official Trench Crusade release, but I don't think they're far off. Worth pointing out as well that these are quite old now. Bestiarum released the first version of these, I want to say, a good few years ago. They've kind of refreshed them and repackaged them since, but they look fantastic. They look great. There's a nice selection of poses. The weapons look awesome. They have the right kind of mix of a little bit of sci-fi, but with some proper old looking guns. Not really sure what this gun could stand in for, thinking about it, but I just like the pose and look of the model. Again, tiny supports. I'm gonna have to get my eyes tested. I'm seeing them once they're like in front of the camera because the viewfinder is like giving me a magnified view. But yeah, they look pretty good so far. I do really like this dude. Kneeling down, he's got the old scope on, and then his helmet has got like a messed up cross carved into the middle of it. Really like that look. And again, just the consistency of having the gas masks or like the respirator style things, it works super well. I think this is one of the easiest sort of proxies that you could find, to be honest. If you've been, subscribed to Bestiarum for a while, the chances are you might have these lying around as part of the Patreon rewards and stuff, and they fit the bill. They fit the bill super well. Really nicely designed miniatures, and funnily enough, completely appropriate for Trench Crusade, it turns out. Oh, and they've all come out really nicely. I am really impressed with this resin. This resin it's doing it for me. Again, that helmet is great. Looks so nice. It's so creepy and weird in the best possible way. But again, all the wrinkles, nice and deep in terms of the detail. The armor segments look great. The weapons, for the most part, as well. We haven't had any of the warping that we had on that one single mace. Just not really shown up anywhere else. It's maybe a little bit of an angle at the very end of that gun, but everything else pretty flawless. Now, here's where things did sort of fall apart. I did a bit of rescaling, and I shouldn't have done. This was initially meant to be a Death Commando, but it's way too small. Way too small. That doesn't work at all. That's my fault for messing with the scaling. Could do with being a little bit bigger, and I guess it is pushing it a little bit, so this is one of the failed drafts. Essentially a weird wolf-human hybrid creature. I think if it was a bit bigger, then it could still work. It could kind of check out, but I think it might maybe need just a little bit of extra tech stuff plugged into it. Requires a bit more either digital or just, actual physical kit bashing to make it properly suit the role. But the idea was there. The thing that did work was I kind of wanted a werewolf, and there's this. This is one of my favourite things that Bestiarum have done recently. This is Fleshfang the Howling Construct. And whilst it's not technically, it isn't technically like the proper description of a werewolf, I love it. It's nightmarish. It's hideous. It's got a bit of a hint of the Church of Metamorphosis about it, which is like a Trench Crusade thing that I don't think has been fully fleshed out yet. Like, I don't think there's any rules, and I don't know if there's much background actually. There's just a fair bit of art that Mike's done, but this kind of felt like it fit. It's very gruesome. It's very horrible. It's like a proper nightmarish creature. You've got these kind of mechanical elements in the arms and the legs. You've got these ports and stuff. Actual like power sources plugged into it. And then a bunch of horrible wolf heads just stretched out of the neck. Proper grim, proper gruesome. I felt like it fit. And I think it does fit. I think this is the kind of like nightmare construct you'd expect to see from hell in Trench Crusade. And as a stand-in for a werewolf goes, I actually really like this, and I think it works pretty well. Technically, it doesn't have a chainsaw mouth, but Then again, it's got 5 heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it is 5. One of them's like sort of shoved off to the side, but yeah, I mean, just properly awful. Properly awful. And the print has come out fantastic. Again, super nice detail, super crisp, super clean. He's even got the talons, look. He's even got the talons. Just works. It just works. It's mad and horrific, therefore it works. I'm really happy with how all those came out. I think they look absolutely great, and I'm really excited to get painting them now, which is a shame because I've got other stuff I need to finish painting before I get to them, but I will get to them eventually. And when it comes to the new PAF 10 resin, I think it's my favourite of the ones I've used so far. I haven't gone through all of the ones that they initially sent me, but of the PAP 10, the PAS 10, and the PAF 10, personally I feel like the PAF 10 is the most well balanced for printing miniatures, and God knows I printed enough of them on that Reflex RS to have a good idea as to what I like at this point. Thank you very much to HeyGears for sending the resin over for me to check out. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, there is a sale going on at the moment. There will be a link in the description and in the pinned comment, and if you use that link and if you use my discount code, you can get a further $50 off on top of the savings that you'd already make due to that sale. So it's definitely worth checking out if you were thinking about it. Thank you again for watching. Feel free to click all the things. Let me know what you thought of the miniatures in the comments down below, and I'll see you for the next one.